In the year 1944, in the small town of Waterton, Connecticut, Holly Hobbie was born, though she wasn't the small pilgrim child you might expect. Denise Holly Hobbie is an artist and author known for two main things. First, an adorable series of children's books named Toot and Poodle, and second, a series of illustrations of girls in rag dresses, who would become the most popular licensed female characters in the world by 1977. Beginning in the 1960s, Denise created artwork inspired by her own children and pets, which she ended up selling to the American Greetings Company for use on greeting cards and a wide variety of other merchandise. If the name doesn't quite sound familiar, American Greetings is second only to Hallmark in the world of greeting cards in the United States. Bye, Muska. This artwork by Denise Holly Hobbie would end up becoming incredibly popular with American Greetings, and one specific character, a little girl in a blue bonnet, would sort of rise up to end up representing the entire brand and Denise herself, earning her the name Holly Hobbie.
This is the wonderful world of Holly Hobbie.
The success of Holly Hobbie would lead to the creation of Those Characters from Cleveland, Inc., a licensing company owned by American Greetings, which would then go on to create such popular IPs as Strawberry Shortcake and Care Bears. Thousands of products have been made featuring Holly Hobbie characters from around the world, including cards, artwork, plates, cups, toys, replica meat grinders, so much more. But of course, today we're going to be talking about the dolls. From the 1970s all the way to the 2000s, Holly Hobbie existed in this sort of weird space of never being the most popular doll around, but having multiple reboots in an attempt to keep her in the spotlight.
With a Holly Hobbie oven, it's fun for you to make tasty pies and a frosty cake, too.
If we're going to talk Holly Hobbie, we have to talk ragdolls. Ragdolls are actually some of the oldest known children's toys in existence, with evidence of them being found buried with children in ancient Egypt and the Roman Empire, and numerous other cultures throughout human history. The act of taking scrap fabric or plant materials like corn husk, or really just whatever was around you, and using it to make a little figure for play or comfort is a, frankly, very human experience. And as with anything that is human, it must be mass manufactured. While throughout history at different points, ragdolls would be a way for kids to practice skills like sewing when making their own, or would be handcrafted gifts made from loved ones, by 1918, one specific ragdoll would rise up to international acclaim: Raggedy Ann. The character of Raggedy Ann was actually originally created for a children's book, and eventually they would actually market a real version of the doll alongside the books, and that was super successful. While the doll would actually go through a lot of legal and copyright hubbub over the next few decades, by the 1940s, over 7 million copies of the book series had been sold, and at least 150,000 of the dolls had been sold. Knickerbocker Toy Company would end up becoming the 5th official manufacturer of the Raggedy Ann dolls, which I promise that is a relevant fact to point out. And so by the time the 1970s rolled around, it was time for a new competitor in the world of ragdolls. As the story goes, Holly Hobbie was an incredibly popular card and merchandise line through American Greetings, and an employee who was working alongside Denise had an idea. Robert Childers essentially looked at this character of Holly Hobbie and went, "She needs to be a doll." Something I say all the time. But supposedly nobody at the company took him seriously, so Childers took things into his own hands, going so far as to hand sew his own version of a Holly Hobbie ragdoll, and then bringing that into work as a way to try and sell this idea. And apparently that worked. American Greetings would reach out to Knickerbocker Toys to set up a licensing agreement where Knickerbocker Toys would create a line of ragdolls for the brand beginning in 1974.
Knickerbocker, toys that love you back.
Knickerbocker Toy Company was originally founded in the 1850s in New York, with the name Knickerbocker coming from a slang term for New Yorkers, which was inspired by baggy trousers that Dutch immigrants would wear. While the company originally produced educational toys such as Letterbox, they would transition into the creation of animals of distinction in the 1920s, aka toy animals. They were especially known for their stuffed bears, which were considered to be quite high quality for the price, and also did a number of Disney tie-in toys through the 20s and 30s. Now, I have to be honest, there are a lot of different sources who say slightly different things about what would happen to the company Knickerbocker after the 80s. I think maybe like different parts of the company were sold to different companies, but basically by the middle of the 80s, Knickerbocker as itself originally no longer existed, and the brand had been sold to a different toy company, which would also still use its name, saying that things were manufactured by it, which is a little confusing. But basically, by the end of the 80s, they weren't Knickerbocker anymore. Rest in peace, the pants.
I helped you through your first day of school.
Back to 1974, we have our release of the first line of Holly Hobbie rag dolls. The rag dolls would originally start with just Holly herself, and then over the years add in different characters, such as Holly's friends Amy, Carrie, and Heather, a brother character named Robbie Hobbie, which is a name, and then also a grandmother character. The original line of dolls actually came in 4 sizes with 2 different packaging styles. So the biggest dolls, the 34-inch and the 27-inch dolls, came in what are called these display boxes that don't have a plastic window, and then the 16-inch and 9-inch dolls came in these windowed boxes. The dolls would all pretty much wear similar outfits with a dress, bloomers, and a bonnet, and Robbie wearing overalls. I think these are overalls? I don't know what he's doing. And then over the next few years, different variations of these would be released. In 1976, a bicentennial doll would come out, of course wearing red, white, and blue, like a patriot that she is. And then also really small miniature versions of the doll would come out, standing at only about 5 inches tall. The Holly Hobbie dolls would be advertised as being an American tradition, and that children would find happiness with them. And also that there being a brother doll makes it like real life. Because apparently boys exist. 1977 would bring a new line of the full-size rag dolls to market with the Dream Along doll that featured Holly, Amy, and Carrie in pajamas with outfits that had like little pockets on them that pets could go in. They all had their own little pet, which is so cute. When I think of a rag doll, I do think of something very cuddly that you would like sleep with at night. So her in her little pajamas, that super works for me. Very adorable. At some point also, this like tote and doll set would be released. And in 1978, they would also release a line of kids toiletry sets, which I really wanted to buy for this video and like try out. But I have already made a video where I bought 20-year-old shampoo for the sake of getting merchandise. So like, maybe I can hold off a little bit. In 1980, a new Holly Hobbie doll from Knickerbocker would be released, quite literally named a new Holly Hobbie doll. Named Little Girl Holly, she featured more pastel-colored clothing, so I think she was supposed to kind of represent a younger-looking Holly. And she's right behind me, isn't she? That same year, a day-to-night Holly doll would come out, but unlike the Barbies of the time who were shedding jackets and reversing skirts to go from work to a night out, this Holly was simply closing her eyes to go to bed, which used kind of like little holes where her eyes would be, and you could push up and down the fabric to make it look like her eyes were open or closed. She's just a sleepy girl, you know? But these would not be the only rag dolls of Holly in this era. Like I was saying before, rag dolls have long been a handmade tradition. And so keeping up with that tradition, American Greetings licensed Holly for doll crafting kits by Avalon, which were a no-sew, kid-friendly crafting kit where they could create their own rag doll. Confusing the whole origin of these rag dolls, as I understand it as well, In 1973, McCall's Patterns also published a pattern for sewing your own Holly Hobbie rag doll. Now, again, this is where the timeline gets tricky because I assumed, like, the guy made the doll and then they were like, oh yeah, we should make rag dolls of these. But because there's these rag doll patterns, I'm like, okay, did he make the doll? And then they were like, ooh, okay, let's make them so they're like ready to buy manufactured, but let's also make patterns. And so was the pattern maybe quicker to make than the ready to make manufactured version? So the pattern came out earlier than the actual doll. I will say the dolls from this pattern do end up looking different than the ones that were like mass manufactured. So like maybe they had made the pattern and then Childers was like, no, we gotta make this so the kids can have them like right away. But upon further research, that story with Childers might just not be true. So I found an article from the United Press International that's from 1987, which said, and after a Holly Hobbie doll appeared as a prop in a 1972 advertisement, a manufacturing company called to ask for permission to use the character. That's when American Greetings decided to pursue the sale of the characters. And so it's possible that the doll that was in the photo for the advertisement is the one that Childers made. I just wish I had a very clear timeline about all of this. I'm obviously struggling, but it sounds, instead of like Childers being able to convince his bosses to make it, a company was actually like, let me make that. Let me make that.
Hobbie cakes.
And while you might now be feeling, oh, phew, we are done with that era of dolls, no. We have more. You see, not only was Knickerbocker creating the rag dolls, but they also released a series of vinyl dolls based off of the characters. The first line was released in 1974 and were 12 inches tall. I think these are like a tiny bit more on the rare side, at least to find in their original packaging, but they did have really lovely detailed dresses and bonnets. They also have like very interesting head shapes. It's a very unique doll in terms of appearance. Then a 6-inch version of the dolls would be released. And I think these ones ended up being a bit more successful because they would actually have outfit packs and playsets released for them. This line included Holly, who came with a gardening set, Carrie, who came with a pet cat, and Amy, who had a baby, which I'm hoping is not her sibling. The parentification of children is cruel. Free Amy. The fashion packs consisted of both repackaged versions of the characters' outfits, as well as some new outfits, like this adorable raincoat, this dress set, and this pajama set. The playsets for this line are so cute. One of the first ones and easiest ones to find is this gazebo set, which came included with a Holly doll, and how it would work is you would kind of lower these walls, and they would be like a picnic and bench and things around the gazebo, and then if you put the walls back up, it would turn it into a carrying case. And so I just find this like a very delightful toy idea. Another playset was the Secret Doll House, which I am admittedly obsessed with. This was a set where you could have your doll stand up at the top of it, and she wore this really long skirt that would conceal her secret house underneath it, which consisted of like a living room kitchen, a bedroom, and closet. This house is really detailed and amazingly adorable, and I'm definitely gonna like casually be keeping an eye out for this for myself because I think it's so cute and it's such a fun little concept to have it like easily, you know, hidden away so it's just some cute room decoration, but it's also a toy. That's so fun! But then the house decided it would come out of hiding, and a non-secret dollhouse would also be released for the line, which would be a 2-story charmer with a kitchen, bedroom, and a porch, which again, very nicely detailed and incredibly cute. And because of course no doll line can resist the siren song of a baby doll, a Holly Hobbie baby would also go to market. Baby Holly Holly would consist of a plastic head and soft body, and was designed to be something that you could love, care for, and scold. The trifecta of parenting. A doll coach would also be released, but I'm not positive if it was made specifically for this baby doll or just like as a general baby doll kids toy sort of thing. Well, that would be the end of the original line of the plastic dolls. There were a couple of other play sets that included dolls by Knickerbocker, including this like house preschool set and this dollhouse, which had dolls that had magnets in their feet so they could like stand up and then you could move them around with a magnet. And the design of that house actually reminds me a lot of the 1997 Barbie Folding Pretty House.
Barbie has a new house!
That we had at my daycare. Story time! On February 28th of 2001, I was at daycare actually playing Barbies with that dollhouse. And you know what also happened on that day? The largest earthquake we would have in the region since the 1940s. So while the lady who ran my daycare was trying to make 2 5-year-olds stand in the doorway with her, which is what was considered safe during earthquakes at the time, we kept running back out of the doorway because our Barbies kept falling out of the doorways of their house, and we had to keep them safe during the earthquake. But you know what would have fixed that? If the Barbies had magnets in their feet. So the moral of the story is if Barbie just had magnets in her feet, like the Holly Hobbie dollhouse, that would not have been an issue. I almost died, Barbie. Wait a second. What's that thing? Throughout this video, you might notice a super cute little accessory I have next to me. This is a Divoom Ditto Plus, an adorable retro future designed Bluetooth speaker with a customizable display. Me and Divoom have worked together in the past, and they very kindly sent me one of these speakers to send to you. So if you want to learn about how you could win one of these adorable speakers in a giveaway, make sure you watch till the end of the video.
Holly Hobbie toys for girls of all ages.
In 1983, Knickerbocker would cease production of the Holly Hobbie toy line, likely due to the fact that they weren't really financially successful enough to stay open. And that's when, Knickerbocker gets sold. But I'm sure that American Greetings creating their own toy company, AM Toys, in 1981, which would then produce soft ragdoll style dolls that wore pioneer clothing that would compete with their own licensed brand, wasn't an issue at all. While Holly herself would sort of fade into the background through the middle of the 80s, AM Toys would actually produce 2 seasonal collector's edition rag dolls in 1988. Light correction here, AM Toys would also release this kind of like classic style Holly doll in 1987, so 1 year before the holiday collector's edition ones. These would be released for the holiday season and were made exclusively for the discount store Zire, which was an East Coast store, so I know nothing about it, and I'm sure I'm also saying its name wrong. These 2 dolls were kind of like the classic rag dolls, but also included a exclusive Christmas time ornament. And this would also be the first time we ever see a non-white version of a Holly Hobbie character. If you didn't pick up on it already, the Holly Hobbie artwork and brand characters were, as far as I could tell, exclusively white. And now in the case of like the original artwork, which was inspired by her children and pets, I can understand. But once it did become like a licensed character and brand and there was a ton of merchandise being made for it, it is kind of shocking that there never seemed to have been any push to represent the girls as having any skin color other than white. It wouldn't be like a huge change to make for them to just have different skin tones. You don't have to like change the outfits or the aesthetics at all. I mean, a likely reason why there wasn't a push for this is the new right conservative group in the 70s and 80s was very much on the rise. Like, we had Reagan in power, and Holly Hobbie probably actually like really appealed to these people, seeing her as like a young, pure white American. And so I really doubt there would have been much pressure on any company involved to consider diversifying. They were probably making a lot of money off of evangelical Reagan voting white Americans, and like probably were like, what's a diversify? I'm doing cocaine. So them releasing a doll that is a different skin color is kind of like a hopeful shift for the brand, which they would then manage to completely throw away with the 1989 reboot of the brand.
Holly socks, Holly Hobbie pants, Holly Hobbie doobie, Holly Hobbie wallpaper. Holly Hobbie just became everything.
In 1989, Holly changed. Her patchwork dress became a pastel mix of blues and pinks, her hair a bright yellow blonde, and her package emphasized that every day was a holiday. Her branding went from earthy neutrals to pastels, and her fashion was modernized, with her classic bonnets becoming floppy hats. And so with the overall rebrand by American Greetings, it was time for a reboot of the Ragdolls. And so those characters from Cleveland Inc. licensed out the new designs to so many companies. This is what kind of originally got me interested in covering the video, because when I looked up this line of dolls, I was seeing some from Mattel, and I kind of went, oh, okay, this is when they started working with Mattel. But then if you look at the Wikipedia article, On Wikipedia, they say that this line of dolls was made by Tomy, and the more I looked into it, the more I realized that it all was kind of odd. Here is the Country Fair Holly Hobbie as made by Mattel, and here she is made by Tomy. Here's one from Irin, and one from Arabopia? Bopia? What is going on? Well, in case you forgot, Holly Hobbie did have massive international appeal, and so those characters from Cleveland licensed out the design for the box and the doll to multiple different companies in order to create international versions of the dolls for sale. And working with multiple different companies at the same time for similar things was kind of the norm for these characters from Cleveland. For example, in 1988 alone, they were producing Special Blessings with Kenner, Nosy Bears with Hasbro, and both Flop-A-Lots and Brush-A-Lots with their own Am Toys Inc. So they were pretty willing to work with a bunch of different companies. But this is a special case where different companies were kind of just putting their names on the box and making slight changes for the different language audiences. So as far as I can tell, the Mattel dolls were made for the US market, Tomy was for the UK, Irwin was Canadian and maybe also French. Their packaging had French and English on it, and the Popia was the German iteration. The Mattel and Tomy packaging for the dolls both say that the dolls were produced and packaged in China, so it's actually entirely possible that there's just one factory in China that was making all of these dolls with all of their slight language variations, packing them up and sending them out to these companies just kind of for distribution purposes. That being said, it does sound like Mattel might have been responsible for the revival. An article from the New York Times in 1989 notes that Mattel persuaded American Greetings to bring back Holly Hobbie, and the greeting card company had considered and then rejected a reintroduction some 4 or 5 years ago. Mattel in August 1988 unveiled ideas for a Holly Hobbie doll and other products that changed its mind. So it does sound like Mattel was kind of the driving force of this new line of dolls and might have actually been kind of responsible for the designs of them. I can't say for sure though. The doll line consisted of 5 versions of Holly. A party day look, a gift from the heart is the best gift of all, Dream Pretty, which was a kind of pajama look, Sweet Dreams Start in a Happy Heart, Fancy Treat, which was kind of just like a cute floral dress, You Deserve a Special Treat for Being Someone Extra Sweet, Traveling Places, which I'm guessing was kind of a traveling outfit essentially, like if you dress up to go on an airplane back in the day. Wherever You Go, Keep Love in Your Heart. And finally, the Country Day look, which was inspired by the original Holly Hobbie designs, Make Each Day a Sunshine Day. Each doll would also come with a styling comb, storybook, and some different themed play pieces depending on the overall theme of the doll. The packaging would actually feature a photo of Denise Holly Hobbie with these dolls and give some background on her as the designer. But I'm not actually sure how much she was involved in this iteration or the kind of rebrand that was happening in the 80s. The packaging also states that the world of Holly Hobbie was where lovable companions become lifelong friends and the fun that is shared is filled with special moments to be cherished forever. The world of Holly Hobbie, where every day is a holiday. While that would be the complete line released by Mattel in the United States, other countries actually would have some Friends of Holly released. But instead of Amy, Carrie, or Heather as we've seen in the past, we instead get Wags-A-Lot Pup, Dandy Bear, and Bunny Bows, a trio of stuffed animals. And it seems for some reason these characters were possibly only released to the European markets, so I believe in England as well as for sure in Germany, which is really interesting because the New York Times article actually specifically mentions that Mattel will offer a line of complimentary stuffed animals alongside the dolls, but I can't find any of these dolls in packaging from Mattel as showing that they were sold in the United States. And while the animals are featured on the packaging in the German boxes as well as in the Tomy boxes, they're not featured on the Mattel packaging. So I don't know exactly what was happening. That could go to show that maybe Holly Hobbie just in general was doing better internationally at the time, and so they were moving forward with producing these side characters, or maybe it could also show that Holly herself wasn't a popular enough character on her own and needed these cute friends to help bolster the sales. I can't say for sure. In 1990, a limited edition Holiday Wishes doll would also be released. And I can't quite decide if I think that this doll was intended for collectors or kids. I think she is plastic, but she also didn't come with a stand, so could possibly work for both audiences, though I think it is kind of marketed as a collector's doll. And that would end up being it with this era of the Mattel collaboration. I think this line of dolls just really didn't reach the expectations that the company wanted. While American Greetings claimed that 97% of American mothers are familiar with the country girl, and that they estimate that the new Holly Hobbie doll will grab at least 25% of the 80 million ragdoll market next year in a niche where no single doll currently commands more than 3% of the sales, it seems that that didn't happen. So while it seems like they were really hoping this would be this kind of grand revival and resurgence of a nostalgic brand for mothers to get their kids, the doll line wasn't continued. So it seems like it probably just fell flat. Around the same time, they did actually also release some DIY patterns. So sewing patterns for both the dolls as well as the clothing that the doll was wearing were released, and they even made life-size patterns of the doll's clothing, so you could wear matching outfits with your doll, which I'm a sucker for. I think that's so cute. Oh no, my hat! Oh no, my fake hat is falling! In 1991, it was also reported in The Plain Dealer that there had been talks of a Holly Hobbie movie to be made. So Richard Doubleman, who had actually wrote a novel about the character in 1980, apparently ended up suing American Greetings because they were backing out of a plan to make a movie around the character, which again goes to show that probably this rebrand just wasn't going the way that they wanted, and they didn't want to put that money towards a movie that they didn't think was going to do well. Despite all of that, American Greetings would then, for some reason, try again in 1993 with another release of ragdolls. These were created by Meritus Industries, and they were supposed to be in celebration of the 25th anniversary of something related to Holly Hobbie. I'm not sure if it's the start of the brand or the dolls. This line definitely leaned on matching the aesthetics of the original line of ragdolls, and it was also reported that they wanted the line to have multiple dolls and outfits and accessories, but I can't find any evidence of any dolls other than this release. So Holly Hobbie would then be kind of laid to rest again until 1997, when a ghost would rise from the dead. The ghost of Knickerbocker. Now owned by Hasbro, I think, Knickerbocker, aka another company using its name, would release a sort of revamp of the vinyl dolls from the 70s, naming them the newly designed Holly Hobbie. And this would sort of combine the aesthetics of both eras, with the box art really matching that of the 70s, but the dolls themselves wearing slightly more pastel versions and using the newer logo. For this, they would release 6-inch dolls as well as 15-inch soft body, hard head dolls, soft body plastic head dolls, which I can only find this really tiny image of them in box. So I don't think these did super well. I don't think a lot of them were produced. I also don't think that they're the cutest Holly Hobbie doll. And how many re-releases is this now? Let's count. So we're gonna count the original release of all the dolls as 1. Amway produces dolls, so that's 2. We have the Mattel dolls, which is 3. We have the next rag doll re-release, which is 4. And then we have these Knickerbocker re-release. So that's 5 re-releases or revamps of a brand within 2 decades. So it's every 5 years, they're do you guys remember Holly Hobbie? And we're you did not give us time to forget. I could not forget this lady to save my life. But again, it was simply all not meant to be, and Holly Hobbie would finally be put to rest until...
Though we've never met, I feel I'm just like you.
It's time for another reboot. In 2004, American Greetings and Nickelodeon Consumer Products appeared at the licensing show, ready to show off what the future of Holly Hobbie would be. According to an article by Kidscreen, the companies were going to take a 2-tiered approach to the revamp of the brand. In 2005, classic Holly items would be brought out featuring the original style of artwork, and then in 2006, the next stage in the world of Holly Hobbie would begin. Holly Hobbie and Friends. This line would be designed to appeal to girls ages 3 to 7, and not only would consist of merchandise such as clothing and accessories and toys, but also direct-to-video specials. So not quite a full-length movie, but not quite a television show, which were a big trend in licensing at the time. As of 2005, a website would appear announcing that Holly Hobbie was back. New products were released, being advertised as having the beautiful patterning, colors, and tradition that are intrinsic to the beloved classic Holly Hobbie style, are celebrated in specific themed colored collections like Country Life, Blue Girl, and Authentic Holly. Tag yourself down below. In terms of actual dolls that would be released, I can find evidence of a red, blue, and Christmas-themed rag doll, all of which had kind of a groovy girl vibe to them, especially in the face. Then it was time. 2006 brought us the new generation of Holly Hobbie. Quite literally, as this Holly is actually supposed to be the great-granddaughter of the original Holly. The lore in this era of Holly Hobbie is that she's a 10-year-old girl who ends up spending time with or living with her aunt and uncle in a town called Clover. Here, she's a part of a secret club called the Hey Girls Club and has two best friends, Carrie and Amy. The Holly Hobbie website at this time period is actually really well preserved on the Wayback Machine, so I highly recommend clicking around on there if that's the sort of thing that interests you. It features character profiles, Holly's journal that you could read about her adventures on, some different download activities, games, crafts, entertainment. It's a really packed web page, and they would also advertise that Holly Hobbie's great-grandmother wants to be remembered too, with a link to the webpage for the more traditional or old-style Holly Hobbie stuff. Don't forget her. She wants to be remembered too. In case you couldn't immediately tell, this line wouldn't actually include any artwork from Denise herself, with her saying in an interview around the time of its release, "I'm not the creator of it, but I'm sort of the great-great-grandmother, and I approve of my great-granddaughter," which is a very cute thing for her to say. The brand would really begin with the release of the first special, which actually would premiere on Nick Jr. and have a video release, and also features a song by country western superstar LeAnn Rimes.
Every little girl watching this will be able to sing along to it.
Here we would be introduced to Holly, as well as her friends Amy and Carrie. Heather, not invited. I quickly want to note, it is really exciting that one of her best friends is represented as a black girl, because again, diversity hasn't exactly been a strong suit of the brand, so I'm glad one of the three main characters isn't white. Around October of 2006, the first line of dolls for this series would be released. These are the Design My Style fashion activity dolls, which kind of lean into the idea of Holly being this really independent and creative girl, and all of her friends like to craft and do it themselves.
Hey girls, we can make our own!
Each of the dolls would actually include an activity kit that you could use to customize their looks. You could add beads to Holly's outfit, stickers to Carrie's outfit, and spray Amy's outfit with water to give it this cool, tie-dye effect. If you'd like to see all of those things in action, fellow doll YouTuber X Canadasis, which I feel like I'm saying so wrong, I'm so sorry, has a video unboxing them and showing off all of the little, accessories and things. So I highly recommend checking that out if you want a closer look at them. These dolls originally retailed for about $17.99 and are, in my opinion, quite cute. They each also came with a chair for the girls to sit in and be in the Hey Girls Club together, as well as a brush and just some other basic doll accessories. This line would also have a set of fashion packs, so each of the characters had a second outfit, and those packs would also come with some extra activity pieces or accessories that you could use to customize them. That, sadly, would be the end of these larger dolls, though. The next release would be a very cute snow cone maker designed to be the Hey Girls Club clubhouse. I love this as a concept. They advertised it as the Cool Treats Clubhouse has 2 levels and lots of great details and amazing accessories. Girls can make real snow cones for themselves and friends. Just add ice in the secret compartment at the top of the treehouse, then turn the handle. Soon you'll have fresh shaved ice, and you can choose from lemon or cherry flavor packs to make a sweet treat. Comes with Holly Hobbie posable figure and loads of accessories. One of my favorite TikTok accounts, actually, ASMR Playroom, has made a video of themselves using this, so be sure to check that out if you want to see it. But this line also came with some separate figures to go along with the Holly posable figure, and it's actually the ones that I have right behind me. These are the simplest toys that would be released from the Holly Hobbie toy set. They simply include the character as well as some scented stickers. It's kind of actually super boring, and I honestly regret buying this. I got the worst bang for my buck possible buying this one. But there you go. Up next, we would have another line of dolls, which would kind of be a mix between the larger dolls and these posable figures. So these are the Clubhouse Girls and Pet sets. These were sets that came with a 4.5-inch doll that had a second outfit, as well as a figure of her pet and some different accessories, a brush, and some crafting stuff as well. In general, this era of Holly Hobbie was really leaning into the crafting thing. Like, if you were a crafty girl, Holly Hobbie was here for you. And speaking of the characters' pets, there would also be a release of stuffed animals of them. So Cheddar, Bonnet, and Doodles were all available. Then in 2007, 2 more lines would be released. Our crafty DIY vibes would continue with the Sweet Treats line of toys. These ones shrunk our characters down to an even smaller size, and for Holly, included a bakery where you could make real, no-bake, I think, cupcakes for you and your friends. Carrie's included a berry fountain, which I believe you could use to make some sort of like punch or drink. And Amy's was a brownie maker. And I can't find a photo of hers in box, but ASMR Playroom has bravely created those brownies for themselves. My bravest soldier. I love you, ASMR Playroom, so much. Then, to appease the horse girls, the Styling Stable line would be released. The Holly doll would include herself, her horse, and a stable, as well as some horse hair styling accessories. Then Carrie and Amy would have slightly smaller sets, which didn't include a stable, but instead had fence pieces that you could use to make a big corral for all of your horses. Yeehaw! I believe those last 2 lines of dolls were around the same size as Polly Pockets, which would make sense. Polly Pockets were incredibly successful at the time, so making a product that's around the same size makes sense. From what I understand, the character designs for this line of Holly Hobbie themselves were done by those characters from Cleveland, but Oscar Marino was the design director for this project with Mattel. Oscar, also known as American Toy Coon online, has had a pretty prolific history in toy design, working in the industry for over 15 years with both Mattel and MGA. While I can't find much that Oscar himself has posted about the designs, another designer, Stephanie Eskandar, who did freelance work with the brand, has posted a lot of the design work that she did for the line, which is very cool. Her Instagram is Steph Designs Toys, and you should absolutely be following her. She posts a lot about like toy design and the work that she's done in the past. And so if you're anything like me and you love to see that sort of thing, you should be following her. It looks like there were a lot of different ideas that ended up transforming into actual releases and changing a lot in that process, and of course other things that wouldn't end up releasing. But it's really cool to look at those and kind of get a feel for what it was like to work on that toy line. It seems like the toy line would kind of end by 2007. The Holly Hobbie website itself stopped being maintained in 2008 and instead would redirect to a more general like kids page on the American Greetings website. American Greetings and Nickelodeon would continue to keep working on the video series. Overall, 8 videos for the series would be produced. In 2006 and 2007, there would be 2 episodes released a year, both of which would premiere on Nick Jr. and have individual DVD releases. Then in 2008 and 2009, both years would also get 2 episodes released. However, they wouldn't be premiered on Nick Jr., and the episodes would be combined into one DVD release for each year. So Overall, we got 6 DVD releases for 8 episodes. This series would overall get like pretty positive reviews, with people highlighting that they liked the fact that Holly was both girly and independent. And even Denise herself seemed to enjoy them, with her commenting that, "I just watched the Christmas DVD, and I was apprehensive. I had nothing to do with it. I invited my 9-year-old granddaughter to watch it with me. I wanted backup. But I thought it was terrific. It was completely different than what I had created, but was really thoughtful. I felt relieved, but even more than that, I was really happy about it." So again, it seemed like all was well, like American Greetings was doing well financially and as a company, but something seemed to happen in 2008. So some of the things that I could find is the woman who was in charge of marketing for the Holly Hobbie brand left. Also, the CEO of American Greetings changed, and it seems like what might have occurred is they decided they wanted to put a bit more energy into the reboot of Strawberry Shortcake that was happening that year. Now, I did also find somebody online saying something about like American Greetings and Nickelodeon divorcing each other around 2008, and I just can't find what that was in reference to, but it makes sense. Something was happening between the two companies at the time, and they were like, we don't really want to work in the same way on Holly Hobbie together anymore. Holly Hobbie has broken this family. And so Holly Hobbie began to, once again, fade away, with the name of the final episode of Holly Hobbie and Friends offering a slightly like on-the-nose description of the brand. Reboot.
Whatever. Sure, just walk away. Guess that's kind of your MO. You're right. I should finish what I started.
What's that? It's time for another reboot? While Holly did get to rest for a good 9 years, it was announced in May of 2018 that filming had started on a live-action Holly Hobbie series. The series was described as a dreamer and a doer. Holly Hobbie has lived her whole life in the small town of Collinsville. Holly's a 13-year-old singer-songwriter who's got her best friends and a close-knit family by her side. But she's dreaming of ways to save the world, even if it's starting in her own backyard. The series would run for 5 10-episode seasons from 2018 through 2022, with a pandemic break in 2020. Interestingly enough, the 4th and 5th seasons, which both came out in 2022, were actually renewed by BYU TV, as in Brigham Young University TV, as in Holly Hobbie is Mormon approved. The series wouldn't have any toys made for it, and after 2022, Holly Hobbie would once again resume her cyclical slumber. So why did Holly work so well originally and then seem to not work again and again and again? The thing is, Holly came to be at what was the perfect time culturally for her. I already brought up the fact that at the time, the United States was swinging more conservative both politically and socially, which she appealed to. But there also was this general prairie revival going on at the time, with hippie fashions and kind of that free spirit look also taking from rural or prairie fashions. So Holly was actually kind of able to cross the line of politics, age, and class. She had an appeal to people kind of regardless of how much money they have, whether they lived in urban or rural areas. She was dressed conservatively, so she appealed to those people who like that, but she was still kind of this like adventurous, fun, mischievous character. You can kind of see that in how it appealed to girls of all tastes. So girls who leaned a little bit more tomboy, when they saw her, they saw the fashion of pioneers who were out like surviving in the wild, like in the show Little House on the Prairie, which had just started airing in 1974, the same year the Ragdolls came out. And of course, more girly girls also liked it because it was frilly floral clothing. So it ended up appealing to a really wide audience at the time. Holly was of course fitting into some gender stereotypes, but also was representing the resistance that people were feeling towards late-stage capitalism, with an article on the subject by Sarah Tatiana Bernstein describing it as, advertisements and editorials depict a frontier or country life where chores are hobbies and you spend most of your time sitting on wooden fences watching the sunset over a field of daisies. And For adult women, when you're living in a culture that demands your labor but isn't prepared to offer fair pay or equal opportunities — the Equal Rights Amendment died in Congress in 1982 — the daydream of dropping out of a stagnant 9-to-5 to churn butter and watch sunsets sounds pretty good. But interestingly, all of that was unintentional. In her book, The Art of Holly Hobbie, Denise writes, "I never intended the girls in my designs to be merely quaint old-fashioned or any of the cliches that some people seem to attach to them. I wanted them to be seen as a bit eccentric and spiritually individual. And also that the character was escaping me. You could actually outfit an entire girl's room with these things. The success was coming too hard and too fast." Denise had ended up creating over 600 pieces of artwork for the characters by the 80s, bringing in likely millions of dollars to American greetings, but also creating a sort of cultural touchstone. Things are often referenced as being Holly Hobbie-like. That's a Holly Hobbie dress. This is a Holly Hobbie pattern. Or people have used it to reference their own kind of innocent childhoods. I've seen so many articles talking about, oh, me with my Holly Hobbie lunchbox or my Holly Hobbie sleeping bag from, the good old days. But of course, that wasn't enough to fully keep the brand alive. The magic in Holly Hobbie was really that it came out at the perfect time culturally. And so as culture continued to move and develop in different ways, that magic just couldn't keep up. And while American Greetings and those characters from Cleveland would often try and lean into the idea that people know Holly Hobbie and have nostalgia for the line, that just isn't enough to sell things. And oftentimes, let's be fair, just because a mom or grandma likes something doesn't mean that the kids will. In fact, often it makes it so the kids like it less because they think, oh, that's like that old thing that my parents liked. For the reboot in 2006, that was a pretty full rebrand. And I think it would be kind of easy for Holly to get lost in the ocean of other blonde dolls and characters at the time. And without the constant reminder of her existence through, say, like a weekly TV show, I think it would just be easy for consumers to kind of forget that she exists or not even know that she exists. Like these specials were airing once, maybe more than that, on TV. I don't know how often people were really seeing her. And then if they didn't have Nickelodeon Jr., how would they know, I just don't think enough people were really seeing the character or knew what she was all about. And there would have been just so many other characters and things to choose from. And because it was such a full rebrand of the character, I can even imagine some older people who might, vaguely remember Holly Hobbie not looking at that and seeing the character that they knew. I think as well, because it was 2006, in general, culturally, we were ready to move on past this kind of love that some people had for the good old days and to look towards the future. And then when it comes to the toys themselves, I have one main critique. And now I'm not a toy designer, so you're welcome to ignore this, but I don't quite think it was helping that there were so many different sizes of dolls. I think at least 3 different sizes, which is really strange. I think it would have made a lot more sense for them to just pick one size and then make everything that they produced to match that size. So if I get a Holly Hobbie doll from this line and then a Carrie doll from a different line, they're the same size and I can play with them together. It feels very weird that they had all these different sizes and different size pieces, so you can't really play with all of the toys together. I also have the sinking suspicion there were a lot of people working on this project, and sometimes too many cooks,
Hi, Great-Grandma. Sorry I never got to meet you.
Oh, sorry, the old Holly can't come to the phone right now. Why? 'Cause she's dead. While doing my research for this video, I came across something that I simply could not ignore: a Holly Hobbie horror novel. Holly Horror by Michelle Crapola is a teen horror novel that was published in 2023. I honestly came across an article talking about the book and didn't believe that it would actually be about Holly Hobbie. In the article, they were like, ooh, this is a new take on a classic character. And I was like, yeah, right. This is just gonna be a weird coincidence. It's gonna have nothing to do with Holly Hobbie. It just has a character with a bonnet on it, and it's called Holly Horror, and I bet the person writing this article is wrong. I also also, like, admittedly really hate the haunted doll trope because none of my dolls are haunted, and I wouldn't want anybody hurting their feelings by calling them haunted. Would kill the vibe of my apartment. So anyways, I bought the book. I filmed the first half of my Holly Hobbie video today, and I have to wait a little bit to get some props for the second half, so I'm going to read Holly Horror while I'm waiting. This guy can't even read. Holly Horror follows our main character Evie as she moves to the small town of Ravenglass with her freshly divorced mom and younger brother. The family is moving into their ancestral home, Hobbie House, which is also referred to by the townsfolk as Horror House, and it's down a one-lane street called Knickerbocker Road. That's gotta be on purpose. I'm kind of obsessed. And is also the place that Evie's aunt, Holly, was last seen alive. I am genuinely, I think, excited for this. For Evie Archer, the story of Holly Hobbie's disappearance is something only told in hushed conversations within her family. I am obviously not in her family. I am not having hushed conversations about the disappearance of this doll line. So the story isn't about Holly Hobbie the doll, but rather Holly Hobbie, the relative of our main character, who disappeared under mysterious circumstances in 1982, which is coincidentally also the final year of production for the original doll line. The original owners of the house were from the 1850s, and a man was murdered in the house, and his daughter went missing. A young girl colloquially called the Patchwork Girl for the dress she had always worn. The rest of the segment will go into spoiler territory, so if you don't want to have Holly Horror spoiled for you, go ahead and skip to the next section of the video. So we're getting introduced to some dolls found in the attic. One of them is wearing a sailor suit. Another is a Raggedy Ann doll whose innards were spilling out of a broken seam. And a different one is a porcelain doll. So none of them are Holly Hobbie. I'm very upset. She found a bonnet and put it on, and then the talking doll talked without pulling its string. So Evie, our main character, is immediately noticing the vibes are off in Ravenglass, like on the way to the house, she's seeing weird shadows, there's weird vibes, and she kind of just slowly becomes obsessed with the disappearance of Holly. She ends up finding her aunt's diary, and it's really a spiral from there as she tries to figure out what is going on and why there are all these mysterious things happening, while also like being a teenager with kind of, teenage angst about moving from the big city of New York to a very small town and dealing with things like bullies. The mean girls are bullying main character because she got partnered with male romantic lead in her home ec class. So classic high school. And boys, and missing your friends, but also not being the one to text them, just being like, man, nobody sent me any messages today. And it's like, girl, are you trying? Phones work both ways, Holly. Wait, her name's not Holly. Phones work both ways, Evie. The Holly character who went missing has a friend named Heather. Canonically accurate. I'm having way too much fun reading this, I think. This book thankfully doesn't take the path of the haunted doll trope, but instead it just really locks on to the aesthetic and eras of Holly Hobbie. Oh my god, she's gonna sew a Holly Hobbie dress for her sewing project. She would make a prairie dress, long and billowy, with voluminous sleeves and ruffles on the skirt and a modern neckline and bodice that married the vintage design of the past with the present. It would be a feminine, elegant, one of a kind. It would be her greatest creation yet. It's just gonna be Holly Hobbie's dress. With our main character kind of becoming possessed by these spirits of past missing girls and making her own Holly Hobbie dress to wear to her homecoming. Which honestly is kind of fun and cute. There's a romantic interest that at first I was like, who's this guy? I don't care about him. He asked her to prom, by sewing Evie Archer, will you go to Hoko with me? Oh, it's not prom, it's homecoming. Embarrassing. On his home ec project that she was helping him sew. And it's genuinely really cute. Like, guys, it's really cute. But like I was saying, there is a lot of teenage angst in this. So if you hate going, no, stop, no, oh, you're so young and silly, you're like probably not gonna super love it. I did find this book so enjoyable. Okay, sorry for like spooky. This is how I'm reading. No, you know my truth. The main character just straight up assaulted her bully. Like, the bully so far had poured hot coffee on her, which fair enough. But she just, like, choked her and didn't realize she was doing it. It's just so fun. This book is so fun. I'm genuinely enjoying this. Nancy Drew reference. It is kind of funny to me that a plot element in this is Holly coming to terms with, like, a caffeine addiction that she's creating. She can't sleep at night in the haunted house she lives in, which fair enough. And she's like, oh my god, am I addicted to coffee now? Like, you got bigger fish to fry, princess. A figure in a bonnet is scaring Holly as she has her first kiss with Desmond. What the fuck, Holly Hobbie? Leave her alone. I think it took me less than 3 days to get through all of it. It's like 300 pages. Okay, I'm only on page 173, so I'm a little more than halfway. I just want to put my guess in before I get to the end. I think there's going to be a gas leak involved. That's my feeling. I think the house has a gas leak, and it's making our main character see some stuff. I enjoyed it. I had like theories in the middle about what I thought was happening, and I was totally wrong, which fair enough. We're now getting to a point in the book where the main character is just stressing me out so hardcore. I don't know how to fully describe this. The ghost of Holly Hobbie has like taken main character into the shadow realm essentially, but they just revealed that Holly's like, you have to find my notes. We're not the only ones down here, which is very much like leading to the sequel, because I think we only have about 30 pages left. Very, Coraline. This whole book it's giving Coraline. But this did end up being kind of like a fun, you know, if we're gonna bring back Holly Hobbie again, like, what a unique way to do it. I'm kind of pissed, because I think I'm gonna have to get the next book. It ends on a cliffhanger. That kind of pisses me off. But as far as I can tell, my theory about it being a gas leak was wrong. It's definitely actually supernatural. I wanna know. It's kind of crazy. And in some ways, it's like very much not Holly Hobbie related at all. But then they'll do stuff like throw in that the house is on Knickerbocker Road. It's like, oh my god, that's just like the real Holly Hobbie. I thought at times it definitely was like an homage to Holly Hobbie, but also very much its own thing. So if you're like, I love dolls, that's not the reason why you should read this book. You should read this book if you, for some reason, like teen YA horror, which I do. Like, if I had this in middle school, I'd eat it up. I'm also going to take the opportunity now to mention, I for sure have missed dolls in this. There is a JCPenney talking doll that came out in the late 70s, early 80s that I discovered while I was editing the first half of this video and finding photos for it. And I was like, where did you come from? And then I found another doll from Am Toys, where I have no clue what year this was produced. I can't find another photo of it anywhere. Holly Horror does have a sequel, and while I'm not sure if the series will continue from there, I do want to point out that American Greetings. If there was any time where the stars have aligned culturally and politically, where we have a lot of people who are very tired of capitalism and are desiring some escapism, we also have a lot of people who are very conservative. I think now is the time for the revamp. I'm not trying to be any sort of person giving business advice. I'm just saying the stars are aligning for a Holly revamp. In like a bad way, but not a bad way if you want to make money. Now that you've made it to the almost end of the video, I want to tell you about how you could possibly win your very own Divoom Ditto. So this is going to be ran as a giveaway for people who are 18 and older, and live in the United States. I'm so sorry. I would love to include other countries, but other countries have harsher rules about how giveaways are ran, and so I can't include everyone, so I'm so sorry. If you would like the chance to win your very own speaker, go ahead and follow the link that I have in the description to a Google form. There you'll be able to see all of the rules about the giveaway and enter in your own information. The winner will be decided randomly on January 1st, and I will reach out to you by the email address that you include in that Google form. But also, if you want one of these super cute speakers for yourself, check out the link to Divoom I have in the description. I'm a huge fan of mine. They are very handy speakers. You can fully customize what's on the screen, either drawing it yourself, or if you're like me and you're not quite that talented, using other people's designs that they've uploaded to the Divoom app. This also has mini games, can be an alarm clock, and has a pretty solid charge time. I love using mine when I'm cooking and cleaning, or want to be able to listen to stuff without having my phone too close to me, because my phone can be such a distraction when I'm doing other stuff. So be sure to check them out and consider getting one of your own. And thank you so much to Divoom for sending one my way that I could share with all of you. It was so awesome of them.
You're welcome, by the way. For what?
Thank you all so much for joining me today. This has been such a fun video to do research on. I've genuinely enjoyed it so much. It's been a wild ride. This all started because I saw a Holly Hobbie doll on HiBid, and I literally on video was like, I know nothing about this. And of course that triggered my brain to be like, let's learn everything about this. I know like rag dolls are a bit of a different world when it comes to the dolls I usually cover, but they're still so fun. Honestly, these ladies are like pretty adorable. I also quickly want to say, if you notice that I've missed talking about a doll in this video, please feel free to type it in the comments down below. I will honestly admit, I'm almost positive that there's a baby doll I didn't talk about and some porcelain dolls that I might not have covered. But feel free to let me know if I missed another era of Holly Hobbie that we should have considered. Thank you all so much for joining, all of us Hollies here today. I hope that you have a fantastic holiday season and a happy new year, and I will see you in 2025. Bye-bye!